do with the diet. This is a reward for training. Hello? So he's got an award, and his diet book is both the book and the exercise tape are called buns. What buns you work on? You work what buns you can eat, and how to get weight off your buns.
Oh wow!
John Lovitz made an
Very
exercise
funny
tape.
Guy.
Well, yeah, it's funny because I don't know if you know, but we got your contact information. I guess you were with John and our good friend Evan Weiner, and so
it sounds like you guys are still really good friends.
No, where I've heard the name, but how remind me how I know this fella? Because I saw his name mentioned when you contacted
right.
me. Right.
He said, I guess he was with you or something a couple of weeks ago or something. You and John Lovitz or something. So that's
he might have been. He might have been at this musical we did.
Right.
I can't. I'll tell you that. I was at an AARP meeting this morning, and sometimes I'm friends with Ethel Kennedy, and I'll accompany her to events, and there'll be like 1,200 people there, and they come over to meet her, and she introduces them to me. And then people will say, I met you when you were with Ethel Kennedy. And, you don't want to be rude, but I have no memory of any of this. I can remember, there's like thousands of people if you're standing next to Ethel Kennedy. So, but if he says so, I neither confirm nor deny it.
I want to ask you about your interviews and appearances, Johnny Carson, David Letterman. It seemed like also you had really good friendships, especially David Letterman. So how did that all come about? How'd you meet?
It came about because when I first went on in 1973, I really was not comfortable. First of all, it's a tremendous pressure. I mean, you got 500 people sitting there. I don't know, maybe at that time with the Tonight Show could have been 5 million people watching. You've got a band. The audience is sitting there waiting to scream at whatever you're going to say, and I just had no confidence that I could. I remember one time I came out and I followed a medley of Diana Ross singing a medley of her greatest hits.
Wow.
Now, I'm an unknown actor at the time, and I'm coming, what on earth am I going to do? So I assumed this persona of the malcontent, which I did up until about 3 years ago, and I stopped doing it because I deal a lot with government officials, and they may have seen me that way, and sometimes I feel like I have to get over that hurdle, because a lot of people don't know I'm kidding. I came out on Letterman once and acted as though I didn't know I was on camera, and I yelled off into the wings, I was told I'd be paid before I came out here. So the problem is, a lot of people don't get it. And a lot of people think, oh, my God, he's the most cranky person they've ever seen. And if you don't know it's a joke, then... So I haven't done it, and I don't really intend to do it. I don't think I will. But it's not that easy just to go out and just be yourself and say, well, I'm working on a new book, or I'm planning to do this. Or it's just not. This is supposed to be entertainment, and that's not entertaining. In fact, I hosted an event in New York recently, and I said, because they showed a clip of me on Johnny Carson where I talked about my entourage. I had buttons printed up. It said Charles Grodin Entourage, and the bit was that he was going to start questioning me about my... I once gave one to President Clinton, actually, and then he looked very curious at me. I said, just, it's a fallback, just in case, just to let you know it's there if you're looking for something at any point. Then he laughed like... But Johnny Carson said, so we're talking all about my entourage, and I said that I don't feed myself, I don't bathe myself, I don't cut my food. Everything I say is pre-programmed. I'm programmed. No matter what you say, I'm programmed that the answer will come out like a recording, this and that. So you don't have an entourage? He says, no. I said, well, see, it shows. And then he does this big take. So they show that clip, and then I come out, and then the fella at the podium says to me, do you have an entourage? I say, no. He says, do you have a press agent? I say, no. He says, well, why do you present yourself so differently? I said, well, these are comedy appearances, and if I'm going to come out and talk about my social work or anything like that, it's just, it's not, oh, and then I got a lot of people out of prison. It's not funny. There's nothing funny there. I raised a lot of money for research into children's cancer. You can't do that. So the only thing I could do, and I'll do it for you, is when I visit a veterans hospital, I have one thing I tell them, which is a true story, that Larry King on television in America until recently, I was on his show about 15 years ago, and he asked me if I'd been in the military, and I deliberately ducked the question twice. And he asked me a third time, and I said, yes, I was in the Navy. He says, well, why were you so evasive? I said, well, I wasn't on our side. And that gets a laugh out of the veterans at the VA hospital. Now, of course, there'll be some people think, gee, he wasn't on our side.
Right.
I didn't know that.
Some people don't get the joke, whatever it is. You know, you mentioned President Clinton. Now, when you were on CNBC on your show, the Charles Grodin Show, obviously the impeachment of the president in 1998, the summer of 98, was a big topic of your show. So take us back then, because it seems like such a long time ago, 13 years, but it's fresh in my memory. So what were your thoughts then, and what are your thoughts now about that whole thing?
The same then as now. I thought it was not a high crime. I mean, he lied about sex under oath. I mean, first of all, the case was thrown out. The Supreme Court threw out the Paula Jones case. I mean, it was so wide-reaching. They're asking about Monica Lewinsky. They found a way to ask about any woman who would come forward, and the case was eventually thrown out of court. And I just thought it was consuming the country's focus. This is in the 2 years prior to 9/11, when the Al-Qaeda or the Taliban were preparing to bomb the World Trade Center, to blow up the World Trade Center, and the country was just focusing on this, on whether the president should be impeached. It's not a high crime. I mean, it's nothing I would do. I'm a Puritan. I don't even flirt. I don't do anything like that, so I obviously don't approve of it. But it's not an impeachable offense. I mean, that would be up to his wife and him, and she obviously chose to stay there. So I just thought the country was focused in a wrong direction, and it was dangerous. And I said it at that time, and then we get 9/11.
Yeah, I mean, shows you how the country changed. You kind of had these small little problems, and then
you can't put focus on things like that. I mean, nobody likes it, but you can't make it the subject that overwhelms everything else.
Right, absolutely. And I want to ask you mentioned the Beethoven movies that grossed over $1 billion. How did you get into that? How did you play that role, and tell us about the experiences being on the set of Beethoven?
Well, the studio the studio head, as I understand it, didn't want me for the role. He told Ivan Reitman, who produced it, and he had earlier produced Ghostbusters and Animal House. He said, I don't think he's likable enough to play the dad. And Ivan Reitman had never met me. All he said was, he's plenty likable. Let's not worry about it. And that was that. And I've thought about why would the studio head have said that? And the only thing I can think of is he probably was around. That was the studio that did Midnight Run, and he probably was around the set. And I don't remember meeting him, but if I did meet him, I talk the same to everyone, whether you're a studio head or it doesn't matter who it is. I just have one way of talking, and certain people, and I assume he was one, Robert Altman, the great director, was another one, they're not used to someone just talking. I mean, you and I, the three of us are talking as equals, which is the way I always see everybody that way. And a line I like to use in my commentaries is, if you must judge someone, judge by character, but not by skin color or anything like that, or certainly not by position. I mean, I once was introduced to the Duchess of Gloucester, the Queen Elizabeth's first cousin. I could not think of one thing to say, because it was at the British Film Institute in New York, and we had just seen a movie a friend of mine was in about necrophilia, so I couldn't talk about the subject of the movie, so I admired the chandelier for a moment, still couldn't think of one thing to say, and then I asked her what the main focus of her life was. Well, she acted as though I had just pinched her in an inappropriate place. She was so stunned by the question. Eventually she said family and friends. She said, I would never ask you such a question, but what's the main focus of your life? And I said, family and friends, and the world didn't come to an end. I mean, so even there, the royalty, which, as you know, you get to be royalty by winning wars. So, I just don't have any deference toward anyone, nor do I have any, I don't look up or down. I look straight ahead, and that bothers some people.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the fairest thing, but yeah, some people are just bothered by that.
They really are. They expect a certain kind of, and I'm exactly the same. It doesn't matter who you are or what you do. I will be exactly the same way. And every time I see anything differently, I really notice it. And I think these people are off the wall. Again, you get to be royalty by winning wars. That's where it all started. And you declare yourself the king, and then you take over. It's not like you get to be royalty by finding a cure for cancer. then I might even, I don't know, I was out once with Elie Wiesel and his wife, and I was out with a friend of mine, and I'm doing all these jokes at dinner, and this friend of mine, she said,